Welcome to today's devotional on Mark. My name is Phil. I'm one of the pastors at North Park Baptist Church. Today we're going to be looking at Mark 1, verses 35 to 39. But before we do that, I want to give you a little context. The day before this happened, we see that Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law, and then in the afternoon, evening, this is where we pick up. It says, that evening after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. And so after a long night in ministry, we have the next morning. And it says this, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. After a busy night of ministry, Jesus got up early and went to a solitary place to pray. I don't know if you're like me. Everybody has different circumstances. Some people have experienced this pandemic at home alone by themselves, being a single person or a widow. But for many like me, home hasn't been a place where you really can be alone. With our unofficial son back from college and our who stays up really late, and then our kids who get up early, it doesn't seem like there's any time to be alone. Even as I've looked back on my life as an extrovert, I didn't realize how much I appreciated the alone time I had built into my schedule before all of this happened, when my wife and kids were away at work and school, and it was just me by myself in the house. And so I've had to make some adjustments. But here we see the God of the universe, God himself, the creator of all things, after a busy day of ministry, making sure he took time to go to a solitary place where he prayed. I love the picture that E. Stanley Jones says about prayer. He described prayer as a time exposure to God. He used the analogy of his life being like a photographic plate, which when exposed to God, progressively bore the image of God in keeping with the length of exposure. Now, for those of you that are younger, that doesn't make any sense because we take a picture and then immediately it's available to print on our phones or our device. But back in the day, you would take a picture and then you would take the film to get processed. And the film, as it was being processed through liquid and being exposed to a light, the image would come to bear. And what this commentator is saying is basically the more we're exposed to God through the act of prayer, the more the image of Christ starts to come forward in our life. The more and more we start to look like Jesus. And he said, R. Kent Hughes says this. This is an overpowering argument in regards to prayer. He says, Jesus is the eternal God incarnate, the creator of all, who holds everything together by his power. Colossians 1:16. Yet he still lived by and in prayer. What a challenge to us. Now, I love how the passage continues. It says, Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, everyone is looking for you. You ever feel that at your house? Your kids, as soon as you withdraw to a quiet place, they all look for you. They can find you anywhere, even if it's in the bathroom. That's the one place where you can go, excuse me, I'm not available right now. But the disciples looked for him, and they expected him to go back and minister to all the people that he'd been ministering to. But it was interesting. He says, let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come. So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in the synagogues, driving out the demons. It's interesting. Jesus said his purpose was to preach, because truth changes. And so Jesus preached truth everywhere he went, with compassion, with love. But I just want to go back to that kind of big thought from today's passage in my mind and ask you a question. What would be the best time and location for you to withdraw for a time alone in prayer with God? Maybe it has to be early before the kids go to bed. Maybe it's late after the kids go to sleep. Maybe you're finding a time where your spouse can watch the kids so you can go off somewhere to pray. What's the best time to be alone with God. And my challenge to you today is to choose a time and place to be alone with God each day of the week this week, and commit to withdrawing to be alone with God. And even if you can't commit to that one time, maybe finding different times each day to withdraw. Because if the God of the universe who created all things needed that time to withdraw and be with his Father to recharge, I would contend that we need it even more so as we deal with all the stress of this pandemic. So let's remember to withdraw, to pray, to be like Jesus, to be exposed to God in prayer so that the image that comes out from us looks more and more like Christ. Have a great day.